A woman who had been in a coma for a year miraculously gave birth to a son. Her scheming best friend not only claimed the baby as her own but also stole her boyfriend. Using this child, she married into a wealthy family as the legitimate daughter-in-law. However, the unexpected delivery actually brought Ji-woo out of her vegetative state, but she had lost all her memories. She kept touching her flat stomach, feeling like she had lost something important. By then, she had completely forgotten that she ever gave birth. 5 years flew by in the blink of an eye. Kang-woo returned home after studying abroad for 5 years. Seo-rin was thrilled and brought their now 5-year-old son to pick him up at the airport. But Kang-woo barely managed to smile at the child he was meeting for the first time. He didn't even give Seo-rin a proper look before turning and walking away. He felt nothing but resentment toward this son, blaming him for being the reason he had to marry this shameless woman. The first thing Kang-woo did upon his return was visit the place where his girlfriend Ji-woo had her accident to pay his respects. When Ji-woo died, his heart died with her. He couldn't let any other woman into his world ever again. What he didn't know was that Ji-woo was still alive. For the past 5 years, she had been living a quiet life in a small village with her mother and younger brother. Without her memories, Ji-woo had fewer troubles, and her life was actually more fulfilling. But every night, she was jolted awake by the same nightmare. In her dreams, a little boy would jump into the ocean, and she would dive in after him without hesitation to save him. But the next second, the boy would vanish from her arms, leaving only Ji-woo with a heart shattered into pieces, desperately searching for the missing child. She was certain that boy must be connected to her somehow. So she asked her mother why she had a scar on her belly and whether she had ever had a child. But her mother genuinely didn't know she had been pregnant. She simply told her, "You've never been married. How could you have a child? That scar is from surgery after your accident." Ji-woo couldn't understand why that boy was always crying so sadly in her dreams, and why it made her heart ache so much. Then one day, something finally triggered her lost memories. She happened to spot a man passing by on the street. The tattoo on his neck and his distinctive black gloves sent a sharp pain through her head. Fragments of memories began flashing through her mind. She was certain this man was somehow connected to her past. Seeing him walking further away, she hurried after him. Unfortunately, she lost him in the crowd. Luckily, her friend managed to snap a photo of his license plate. She vowed to find that man and reclaim her lost memories. Meanwhile, Seo-rin discovered Ji-woo's wedding dress photo in Kang-woo's luggage. She was absolutely furious. She had planned to use her charm to win over Kang-woo, but he showed zero interest in her. He even warned her not to try taking advantage of someone's grief. This made Seo-rin even more livid. What did she lack compared to that friend who had been dead for 5 years? She refused to give up and swore she would have Kang-woo and the title of Lady of the Household. With her friend's help, Ji-woo tracked down the address of the tattooed man. He was now working at a corporation, the very company owned by Kang-woo's father. She went there alone to find out more about the car's owner. At that moment, Kang-woo happened to walk right past her, but he didn't notice that the woman he had been dreaming about was standing right there. They passed each other like strangers. On her way home, Ji-woo encountered the elderly chairman collapsed on the ground, clutching his stomach in agony. He looked like he was about to die. Fortunately, Ji-woo helped him in time. She got him his life-saving medication and then kindly hailed a cab to take him home. Her kindness left a deep impression on the old chairman. Meanwhile, Seo-rin's mother had also returned from abroad. She was too afraid to go to Seo-rin, so she tracked down Ji-woo's new address through the police and went straight there. When she saw Ji-woo, she was so terrified that she dove under the table, repeatedly apologizing. Only when she learned that Ji-woo had lost her memory did she finally calm down and settle in. But Seo-rin soon found out her mother had returned to the country. She panicked, fearing her mother would expose how she had stolen another woman's child to marry into wealth. She sent Dong-soo to secretly find her mother as soon as possible. To find the tattooed man, Ji-woo applied for a job at the corporation. She ended up meeting the old chairman she had helped. Both were surprised to see each other. The chairman was so fond of her that he immediately hired her as his personal caregiver. Later, Ji-woo encountered a little boy playing alone in the courtyard of the wealthy estate. She didn't know that this boy was the child who kept appearing in her dreams, her own biological son. Perhaps it was the blood bond between them. But despite not knowing each other's identities, they felt an inexplicable closeness from the moment they met. Then Seo-rin appeared in the courtyard. She watched the departing figure and felt something familiar. She stood up and called out to Ji-woo. When Ji-woo slowly turned around, Seo-rin's first instinct was to pull Shimai behind her to hide him. She recognized immediately that the woman standing before her was the friend who had supposedly died 5 years ago. Seo-rin clutched her chest, her heart nearly pounding out of her ribcage. After Ji-woo introduced herself, Seo-rin finally accepted that Ji-woo was truly alive and standing right in front of her. The only thing that puzzled her was why Ji-woo greeted her like a complete stranger. But that wasn't the issue at hand. What mattered now was making sure Kang-woo never saw Ji-woo. Otherwise, everything she had worked for, including the child, could vanish into thin air. Poor Dong-soo got slapped hard across the face the moment he saw Seo-rin. She furiously demanded to know why he had told her Ji-woo was dead. Under her barrage, Dong-soo had no choice but to reveal that her mother had saved Ji-woo all those years ago. Seo-rin was beside herself with rage. At this point, all she could do was have Dong-soo find her mother quickly to figure out how Ji-woo had come back from the dead. She also needed to find a way to keep Kang-woo from discovering Ji-woo. Otherwise, all her efforts would be for nothing because of Ji-woo's return. And Director Byun wouldn't let them off easily either. With Ji-woo's attentive care, the old chairman's mood improved significantly, and his appetite increased dramatically. The longtime housekeeper who had cared for him for years could hardly hardly believe it. Hearing the housekeeper praise Jiwoo only made Seo-rin angrier. She grabbed Jiwoo and hurried out of the house. Just then, she spotted Kang-woo returning from a distance. Terrified, she shoved Jiwoo into the car. She breathed a sigh of relief. A moment later and Kang-woo would have seen her. She drove Jiwoo downtown and, using the excuse that Jiwoo wasn't a professional caregiver, fired her on the spot. Jiwoo wanted to say goodbye to the chairman, but Seo-rin warned her that she was the lady of Musum Group. Firing a nobody like you doesn't require the chairman's approval. Seo-rin then went home and fabricated a story, telling the chairman that Jiwoo had quit because the job was too demanding. The chairman was very disappointed. Only then did Seo-rin understand why Jiwoo had seemed like a stranger. She had lost all her memories. Jiwoo had taken the caregiver job just to find Dong-soo and recover her memories. This finally put Seo-rin's worried mind at ease. That night, the old chairman had a sudden heart attack. He tried calling everyone he could think of, but no one answered. In desperation, he called Jiwoo for help. She rushed over and once again saved his life in the nick of time. The chairman scolded her for not being able to handle such minor hardships and quitting the job. Only then did she realize that Seo-rin had fired her on her own. As Jiwoo was about to leave, Kang-woo, who had been drowning his sorrows in alcohol, happened to return. Seeing the woman he had been dreaming about suddenly appear before him, he walked toward her in disbelief. Their eyes met, and tears of longing streamed down both their faces involuntarily. Kang-woo carefully called out his girlfriend's name. When Jiwoo heard him say her name, her heart ached inexplicably. Unable to contain his longing any longer, Kang-woo stepped forward and pulled Jiwoo tightly into his arms. Jiwoo sensed an incredibly familiar scent from him, but she couldn't remember where she had experienced this familiar feeling before or what her relationship with this man was. At that moment, Seo-rin witnessed the scene she had dreaded most. Seething with anger, she rushed forward, grabbed Jiwoo's hand, and threw her out. Kang-woo tried to chase after her but collapsed unconscious from intoxication. All he could do was helplessly watch through blurred vision as Jiwoo slipped away from him once again. When Kang-woo came to, he immediately ran outside to look for Jiwoo. He was certain the person he saw last night was his beloved ex-girlfriend. Seo-rin had already prepared her response. She told him he had been drunk last night and had once again mistaken her for Jiwoo. It was another chance in 5 years for me to share a bed with you, she said. She emphasized that Jiwoo was dead and he should stop living in that pain. She told him to cherish the person right in front of him. Kang-woo felt sick just looking at her. How could he possibly cherish her? He left, skeptical but disheartened. But Jiwoo's appearance in front of Kang-woo had thoroughly enraged Seo-rin. She found Jiwoo and slapped her hard across the face, warning her to stay away from her home. The more anxious Seo-rin became, the more puzzled Jiwoo felt. Why had that man called out her name with such heartache last night? And why did her own heart ache in response? Why was Seo-rin so afraid of her being at the chairman's house? She needed a reasonable explanation from Seo-rin. Getting no answers from Seo-rin, Jiwoo decided she wouldn't be pushed around anymore. She told Seo-rin she was going back to work for the chairman. She felt certain those people were somehow connected to her lost memories. Seo-rin was livid. Even without her memories, this friend still ignored her just like before. She vowed to make Jiwoo pay for disregarding her. Jiwoo returned to work for the chairman, who was delighted. Worried she might quit again, he offered her double the salary. Though their time together had been brief, the old chairman had great trust in Jiwoo. He entrusted her with an important document to deliver to Kang-woo at the company. Seo-rin was out shopping when she immediately received a tip-off from the housekeeper. Panicked, she rushed to the company to intercept. She reached Kang-woo first and made up an excuse to get him to leave. Just as they were waiting for the elevator, Jiwoo was already inside, about to come down. Seo-rin grew more anxious as she waited, but when the elevator doors opened, she breathed a sigh of relief. Jiwoo was in a different elevator, and they had just missed each other as Kang-woo's group stepped in. She had dodged it again this time, but Seo-rin knew she couldn't keep watching Jiwoo's every move. She needed a permanent solution to get rid of her for good, so she told Jiwoo the reason for her hatred, painting Jiwoo as the homewrecker who had destroyed her relationship with Kang-woo. She claimed that Jiwoo had stopped at nothing to steal Kang-woo away from her when she was already pregnant. That's why Kang-woo had called out Jiwoo's name that night. This shameful narrative was hard for Jiwoo to accept. She began to wonder if her past was really that disgraceful. Just as she was drowning in misery, a voice called out from behind. When she turned around, Kang-woo couldn't believe his eyes. The caregiver working in his family's kitchen was the girlfriend he had mourned for 5 years. Seeing this man again, that familiar ache welled up in Jiwoo's heart, but she couldn't bring herself to look at him. Kang-woo walked up to her. He thought he was dreaming again, but the real sensation of touching her made him realize this was all real. The woman he loved truly hadn't died. But remembering what Seo-rin had told her, that she was a homewrecker, Jiwoo couldn't accept such a reality. She broke free from his grasp and ran out the door. Kang-woo chased after her. The housekeeper witnessed the scene and immediately reported to Seo-rin that Kang-woo had just run out after Jiwoo. Seo-rin was thrown into a panic, but on second thought, Jiwoo had lost her memory and had been manipulated by her lies. Plus, Kang-woo was now legally her husband. As long as Jiwoo didn't recover her memory, there was nothing to worry about. Kang-woo chased Jiwoo all the way outside and grabbed her hand, asking her to look at him. He couldn't understand why Jiwoo had changed so much, why she was still alive but hadn't come looking for him in 5 years. He poured out 5 years of longing for her. Afraid of losing the love of his life again, he held her tightly, thanking her for coming back to him. Suddenly, painful images flashed through Jiwoo's mind, and she collapsed. Kang-woo was terrified and rushed her to the hospital. The doctor told him that because the patient had been in a vegetative state for an extended period, her brain function was abnormal. She had lost all her memories upon waking, and some kind of shock while in her amnesiac state had caused her to faint. Looking at Jiwoo lying weak and fragile on the hospital bed, Kang-woo's heart broke. He couldn't imagine what kind of hellish life she had endured over these years to end up like this. He blamed himself for being the cause of her suffering. Ji-woo's mother and brother rushed to the hospital after being notified. Seeing Kang-woo, the mother angrily demanded to know why he had to keep hurting Ji-woo, who had already forgotten everything. The brother stepped forward to drive Kang-woo away, but Kang-woo insisted on staying until Ji-woo woke up. In the heat of the moment, Ji-woo's mother revealed what had happened years ago. It was because Ji-woo went to meet Kang-woo that her husband and daughter got into a car accident. Her husband died, and Ji-woo was in a coma for 5 years, waking up with no memories. She blamed everything on Kang-woo and told him never to appear in front of her daughter again. Kang-woo left in disbelief, realizing he was the reason Ji-woo's family was destroyed. Then it suddenly hit him, Seo-rin had been lying to him all along, telling him Ji-woo was dead. Something was definitely fishy. Fury surged through him. He went home and had a huge fight with Seo-rin, demanding to know why she had hidden the fact that Ji-woo was still alive. This only made Seo-rin more convinced that Ji-woo was a ticking time bomb threatening to destroy her perfect life. What Kang-woo didn't know was that another man had appeared in Ji-woo's life, Sun-ho, her protector. He stayed at the hospital alone to take care of Ji-woo. He was terrified that Kang-woo would steal Ji-woo away from him. He kept wrestling with whether to confess his feelings, but love was on his lips and he couldn't spit it out. He never found the courage to speak his heart. Ji-woo kept dreaming about the boy jumping into the sea and her father sinking to the bottom. The pain was unbearable. She went to her father's memorial and wished he could tell her what kind of woman she really was. Was she really a shameless homewrecker who destroyed other people's families? Sun-ho watched her suffer, his eyes full of reluctance to leave her. All he could do was silently stay by her side. As she was about to leave, she encountered a man who claimed to be a former subordinate at her father's company. He told her that her father had been the director of the inspection bureau and had been secretly investigating corruption at Musung Group before his death. Because of her father's passing, nothing was ever exposed, and all investigations were forced to stop. Hearing the name Musung Group and connecting it to recent events, Ji-woo sensed her father's death wasn't as simple as it appeared. All signs pointed to Kang-woo's family and their Musung Group. When Ji-woo returned home, Kang-woo was already waiting at her door. Sun-ho stepped between them to protect Ji-woo, claiming to be her boyfriend and telling Kang-woo to stop bothering her. Kang-woo felt like a knife was twisting in his heart. To drive Ji-woo away from Kang-woo, Seo-rin had been secretly watching her. Seeing Ji-woo laughing and playing with a strange man gave her an idea. Soon, all the information about that man landed in Seo-rin's hands. His name was Sun-ho. He had been secretly in love with Ji-woo since college and was now living in the same building as her. This made Seo-rin very happy. She planned to use Sun-ho to make Kang-woo give up on Ji-woo, just as Seo-rin expected. The moment Kang-woo learned Ji-woo was alive, he immediately asked Seo-rin for a divorce. Seo-rin wasn't worried. After all, she was still Kang-woo's legal wife. If Kang-woo openly pursued Ji-woo, he would be labeled as morally corrupt, which would create huge negative publicity for the family and the company. The old chairman would personally intervene to handle the situation. Kang-woo understood the severity of the situation, but he was still determined to find a way to get Seo-rin out of his life. Just then, the old chairman's condition worsened and he collapsed. The doctor suggested bringing back the former caregiver to look after him, as that would help stabilize his condition. Seo-rin absolutely didn't want Ji-woo back in the house near Kang-woo. But then she had a change of heart. She decided to bring Ji-woo back home and torment her right in front of Kang-woo. Ji-woo was kept in the dark. Still believing she had once been the homewrecker in their marriage, she sincerely apologized to Seo-rin when they met. Seo-rin pretended to let bygones be bygones, saying she would overlook the past if Ji-woo came back to care for the chairman. Ji-woo initially wanted nothing more to do with their family and didn't agree right away. But that day, her father's colleague told her that her father had investigated Seo-rin, had met with Seo-rin, and seemed to know her well. To get to the bottom of everything, she decided to return and find out the truth. Before that, she found Kang-woo. She wanted to clear up whatever bad blood existed between them and stop him from pursuing her. Kang-woo was baffled by her concerns. He told her they had been deeply in love and were even engaged. How could their relationship be something shameful? Only then did Ji-woo realize Seo-rin had been lying to her. Kang-woo seized the opportunity to ask Ji-woo to return to their former loving relationship, but under his hopeful gaze, she flatly refused. Ji-woo was puzzled. Why was everyone hiding her past with Kang-woo? With so many unanswered questions, she had no choice but to return to the household to continue working. Sun-ho, worried that Kang-woo might harass Ji-woo, came early to pick her up from work. Ji-woo was grateful for Sun-ho's feelings but couldn't reciprocate his love. Yet when she saw Kang-woo, Sun-ho once again became her shelter from the storm. To keep Kang-woo from pursuing her, she took Sun-ho's hand and pretended to be a couple. Seeing this, Kang-woo felt like his heart was being ripped apart. He swore he would win back the woman he loved. Soon after, the ailing old chairman decided that today was the day to pass on the golden key, the symbol of family inheritance, to his only son. But his only son was currently lost in the quicksand of love. To break down every obstacle between himself and Ji-woo, the first person Kang-woo couldn't tolerate was Sun-ho. He absolutely wouldn't allow another man to have the woman he loved. Sun-ho was competing with Musung Group for a development project. Kang-woo decided he had to win this project to crush Sun-ho. Unfortunately, his proposal wasn't as well suited to public needs as Sun-ho's, and he lost the competition. This result infuriated the old chairman. He immediately took back the golden key and abandoned his plan to pass it on. He berated Kang-woo as a useless good-for-nothing. The chairman complained about why he hadn't had more sons when he was young, so he wouldn't have to place all his hopes on Kang-woo. Father and son had a heated argument. From the housekeeper, Ji-woo learned that Kang-woo was actually the son of a mistress. She started to feel some sympathy for his situation. Seo-rin seized this opportunity to drive a wedge between Kang-woo and Ji-woo. She told him the reason he lost the competition was because Ji-woo came to work at the house specifically to help Sun-ho win the development rights. She claimed Ji-woo had eavesdropped on important information from the chairman, and the two of them worked together to catch him off guard. That night, Kang-woo confronted Ji-woo about this. He didn't care about the development rights, he just wanted to know if Ji-woo had really come to his house for Sun-ho's sake. To shake Kang-woo off for good, Ji-woo confirmed the false accusation. Kang-woo froze in disbelief. He painfully demanded to know how she could have another man in her heart. He clung to her, sobbing. Ji-woo made it clear that she viewed him as a stranger and only wanted to recover her memories. After much thought, Kang-woo realized the only way to get Ji-woo back was to help her recover her memories. Ji-woo finally revealed the real reason she had come to work at the house. She told him that the tattooed man from her memory was his family's driver. She needed to find out what connection that tattooed man had to her lost memories. This only strengthened Kang-woo's resolve to help Ji-woo recover her memories. When he returned home, he happened to see Seo-rin with Dong-soo. He felt nothing inside, but the wing tattoo on Dong-soo's neck caught his attention. That was one of Ji-woo's targets for coming to this house. Back in his room, Seo-rin acted as if nothing had happened and shamelessly hugged him. Even with her expensive perfume, Kang-woo thought it couldn't mask her cheap, dirty soul. Faced with his cold indifference, Seo-rin instantly changed her expression and complained that he was a heartless man. From their wedding until now, he hadn't touched her with so much as 5 fingers. She then broke down crying on the bed. Suddenly, Kang-woo noticed a wing tattoo on Seo-rin's shoulder, identical to Dong-soo's. He became increasingly aware that Seo-rin and Dong-soo must share some dirty secret. To make one last attempt at securing the development rights, the old chairman dragged his frail body to meet Sun-ho. When Sun-ho saw the chairman, complex emotions flashed in his eyes. Before his mother died, she had told him about his true parentage. Only then did he learn that his father was the chairman of Musung Group. When his mother passed away, he had notified the chairman to pay his respects. But the chairman didn't seem to care about his mother at all. Since then, Sun-ho had harbored deep resentment toward his father. He wanted nothing to do with a father he had never known. This was their first meeting as father and son under these circumstances. Sun-ho recognized the chairman, but the chairman didn't recognize his outstanding son. The chairman offered a generous buyout for the development rights. Facing the chairman's arrogant, money talks attitude, Sun-ho didn't flinch. He tore into the chairman, leaving him worthless. Yet the chairman wasn't angry. Instead, he showed admiration. He made up his mind to recruit this talented man to help his son at the company. One day, Ji-woo was happily playing hide-and-seek with Shimai in the backyard. When she suddenly turned to look at him, his distant silhouette perfectly overlapped with the blurry figure of the boy in her dreams. Ji-woo rushed forward and pulled Shimai into her arms. The moment she held him, she felt a pang of fear, the fear of losing him. She couldn't understand why Shimai kept appearing in her dreams for no apparent reason. Perhaps it was that blood bond. Shimai always loved being around Ji-woo. Wherever she was, he felt incredibly happy. During bath time, Ji-woo was shocked to discover that Shimai had a birthmark on his foot identical to hers, in the exact same spot. But she didn't think too much of it. She simply felt they had some kind of special connection. Their happy moments together always made Seo-rin nervous. She roughly scolded her son, telling him not to always hang around the maid. Shimai was so scared he hid behind Ji-woo. Seeing Seo-rin lose her temper at an innocent child, Ji-woo called her out. The image of a mother protecting her son only made Seo-rin angrier. She snapped at Ji-woo, saying she had no right to tell her how to raise her own child. She then forcibly dragged the crying Shimai away from Ji-woo. Watching Shimai so heartbroken, Ji-woo felt an inexplicable sadness well up inside her. She didn't understand why she always ended up in tears because of Shimai. That night, Seo-rin had a nightmare. She dreamed that Ji-woo took her son away. No matter how hard she tried to stop them, she could only helplessly watch them drift further and further away. She woke up in terror, more afraid than ever that her son would leave her. She unleashed all her rage on Ji-woo, throwing a huge pile of useless clothes on the floor and demanding that Ji-woo wash every piece by hand. When Kang-woo learned that Seo-rin was tormenting Ji-woo, he furiously warned her that if she dared hurt Ji-woo again, she shouldn't blame him for being ruthless. Seo-rin was so angry she started smashing things around the room. One day, the housekeeper was busy and asked Ji-woo to pick up Shimai from school. When Shimai saw it was his favorite maid, he happily threw himself into her arms. Every time Ji-woo saw Shimai, she felt inexplicably happy too. Despite being the young master of a wealthy family, Shimai didn't have a happy childhood. Seeing his longing eyes, Ji-woo let him play with the other children. Soon, a bright smile spread across Shimai's face. When Seo-rin found out Ji-woo had picked up her son, she immediately panicked and called to ask where they were. Just as Ji-woo answered the phone, Shimai slipped and fell off the slide. Seeing Shimai seriously injured, Ji-woo was beside herself with worry. She scooped him up and ran to the hospital. At that moment, it felt as if her own child had been hurt. She weaved through traffic, so focused that she didn't even notice when her shoes fell off. At the hospital, Shimai needed emergency stitches for his head wound. Since Seo-rin still hadn't shown up, Ji-woo made the call herself. She signed off on the surgery as his family member. Seo-rin finally rushed to the hospital after the surgery was over. Without a word, she slapped Ji-woo hard across the face. Just then, a nurse called for the child's mother. Ji-woo reflexively turned to step forward but quickly caught herself. Seo-rin was Shimai's mother. Yet for some reason, this realization left her feeling strangely disappointed. Afterward, she apologized to Seo-rin again with deep remorse remorse, then left the hospital looking utterly lost. Watching Seo-rin's family of 3 drive past her in their car, her heart inexplicably filled with bitterness. Not long after, Ji-woo went to the hospital, where a nurse recognized her. The nurse remembered her vividly because a woman in a coma had miraculously given birth 5 years ago. Seeing that same woman now, the nurse was astonished. She called out to Ji-woo using the name Soonbak, the name on her hospital records. Soonbak was actually Seo-rin's real name. To cover her tracks back then, she had Ji-woo admitted under her own name for treatment. Ji-woo was confused as to why the nurse called her Soonbak. Wasn't Soonbak her deceased best friend? Why would the nurse call her that name? Back home, Ji-woo searched through photo albums trying to find what her friend looked like. Strangely, no matter how many albums she went through, she couldn't find a single photo of Soonbak. To unravel this mystery, Ji-woo began contacting old classmates listed in her phone book. After making over 1,000 calls, she finally reached a high school classmate. The classmate told her that Soonbak had been her best friend, but for some unknown reason, Soonbak had disappeared on the night of her birthday. Meanwhile, ever since Kangwoo noticed that Dong-soo and Seo-rin had matching wing tattoos, he had been secretly investigating. He finally tracked down an old buddy of Dong-soo's to learn more. The man revealed that Dong-soo once had a wife named Soonbak. She was a woman Dong-soo had picked up off the street, but she later died. What Kangwoo didn't know was that the Soonbak this man mentioned was actually Seo-rin after she changed her name. In fact, the man had already been bribed by Director Byun before their meeting. Everything he told Kangwoo was a lie. Director Byun was furious and deeply disappointed in Seo-rin. Not only had she failed to capture Kangwoo's heart, but she had made him suspicious enough to start investigating. Director Byun warned Seo-rin that if she didn't clean up her past, she would be discarded like a worthless pawn. Seo-rin began to feel the pressure mounting. She put aside her petty schemes and focused on helping Director Byun take over Musung Group. But what Seo-rin never expected was that the classmate happened to run into her on the street and immediately recognized her. The classmate called out Seo-rin's real name, Soonbak. Seo-rin panicked and couldn't bring herself to face her classmate. She fled the scene, but this only made the classmate more suspicious. She immediately told Ji-woo about the encounter. She was certain that the woman who had run away from her was the Soonbak who had disappeared years ago. Ji-woo walked down the street in anguish. From her classmate's account, she learned that she had once had a child with Kangwoo. The child had been born under her friend Soonbak's name. Ji-woo believed the child was dead and felt overwhelming guilt. She blamed herself for only now crying for her baby. The classmate urgently reached out to Ji-woo again. This time, she brought a magazine photo of Seo-rin. She told Ji-woo clearly that the daughter-in-law of Musung Group was none other than her best friend Soonbak. Ji-woo was stunned. She couldn't believe the person who had been by her side all along was her best friend. She suddenly felt like she was grasping an important clue. Exhausted, Ji-woo fell asleep as soon as she got home. This time, she dreamed of beautiful memories of being in love with Kangwoo. She woke up with a sweet smile on her face. She finally understood that she and Kangwoo really had been a couple deeply in love. The feelings she had been suppressing for so long were no longer hidden. She began secretly dating Kangwoo. The two lovers had finally reached the moment of reunion. But Seo-rin, who had been watching them, immediately rushed to where they were meeting. Ji-woo's mother had also followed her daughter there. She recognized Seo-rin as Soonbak right away. To eliminate this threat to her identity, Seo-rin pushed her off the cliff. A piercing scream echoed through the forest and lingered in the air. Ji-woo recognized that familiar voice instantly. But when she found her mother, all she saw was her lying on the ground, covered in blood. With her last breath, her mother left Ji-woo with final words, "Soonbak is still alive." Ji-woo already knew Soonbak was Seo-rin. Tragically, her mother died before she could say more. Losing both parents shattered Ji-woo completely. She collapsed, crying until she passed out. This tremendous shock awakened all the memories that had been dormant in her mind. When she woke up, Ji-woo had finally recovered all her memories. Her eyes were no longer innocent and pure. They were filled with rage. After carefully piecing together the memories in her mind, she discovered that all her tragic experiences pointed to her so-called best friend Seo-rin. She vowed to tear away all the fog and uncover the truth, and get her revenge. Ji-woo told her brother that she had recovered her memories. Only then did her brother hand her a letter. He explained that everyone had assumed she was dead, but a year later, someone secretly sent a letter to their home revealing Ji-woo's location. That's how they found her at a nursing facility. Seo-rin's mother saw the letter. She was the one who had sent it all those years ago. She immediately became nervous. Her panicked demeanor aroused Ji-woo's suspicion. Filled with hatred for Seo-rin, Ji-woo confronted her mother without holding back, demanding to know what secrets she had been hiding. To protect her daughter, Seo-rin's mother could only flee to her room to avoid Ji-woo's questions. But Ji-woo remembered she had given birth to a child. She hurried back to the hospital to find the nurse who had recognized her. The nurse told her that while she was in a vegetative state, Seo-rin's mother had been caring for her throughout her pregnancy, which saved both their lives. She eventually gave birth to a baby boy. But Seo-rin's mother took the newborn away immediately. The nurse said she didn't know what happened to the child after that. Ji-woo was stunned. As a mother, she couldn't even be certain whether her own child was still alive. Back home, she looked at Seo-rin's mother, who now suffered from dementia. She was grateful for the care Seo-rin's mother had given her. Over the years, Ji-woo had come to see her as her own mother. She decided to wait until the old woman's condition stabilized before asking about the child. But Seo-rin's mother also loved Ji-woo like her own child. Watching Ji-woo suffer the pain of losing her family and now the torment of searching for her child was more than she could bear. She didn't want to see her daughter Seo-rin continue down this sinful path. fearing her condition would worsen and she'd never get another chance to tell the truth. She finally revealed the painful secret she had kept hidden in her heart. She told Ji-woo that Shimai was not her daughter Soonbok's son, he was Ji-woo's biological child. Learning the truth felt like a knife twisting in Ji-woo's heart. Now she understood why she always felt inexplicably happy around the boy, why her heart ached whenever he got hurt. It was the bond of blood all along. Although Ji-woo now knew Shimai was her own son, she could only suppress her pain and keep the secret hidden to avoid hurting him. Shimai saw Ji-woo crying and assumed they were tears of sadness. That mother-child connection made him want to comfort her, but these were actually tears of joy. She was overjoyed to have found her child. To further confirm their relationship, she secretly took Shimai's toothbrush for a DNA test. Meanwhile, Kang-woo tracked down the woman who had helped Seo-rin set the trap at the hotel. From her, he learned the truth about that night. Nothing had happened between him and Seo-rin. Kang-woo was instantly confused. If nothing happened, then where did this child come from? The DNA test confirmed the child was indeed his biological son. Kang-woo suddenly remembered Ji-woo telling him they had once had a child together. If that was true, then Shimai must be his and Ji-woo's son. Kang-woo couldn't believe Seo-rin had stolen Ji-woo's child and married him. He desperately wanted to find Ji-woo and tell her that Shimai was her own flesh and blood. By then, Ji-woo had already received her DNA test results. The report clearly stated that a parent-child relationship was confirmed. The truth about the child was finally out in the open. With tears streaming down her face, Ji-woo rushed to find Shimai. She snatched him from Seo-rin's grasp and held him tight, telling Seo-rin this was her child. Ji-woo no longer hid the fact that she had recovered her memories. Though briefly startled, Seo-rin refused to let Ji-woo take Shimai. He was her trump card for securing her position as the daughter-in-law of a wealthy family. She had Dong-soo forcibly take Shimai from Ji-woo's arms. Watching her son being taken away again, Ji-woo chased after them desperately. Fortunately, Kang-woo arrived just in time to block Dong-soo's path. Shimai broke free and ran straight into Ji-woo's arms. Kang-woo was furious. He berated Seo-rin for doing something so inhuman. Because of her, he had never treated Shimai properly for 5 years. Seo-rin tried to argue that Shimai was her child, but Kang-woo had reached his limit with this shameless woman. He threw all her clothes on the ground and told her to get out of the house. There was no way Seo-rin would watch her prize slip away. Still failing to recognize her wrongs, she threatened to fight in court and do whatever it took to get Shimai back. She warned that the one who would be hurt by public scrutiny would be the child. Enraged, Ji-woo had Kang-woo bring Seo-rin to the place where her mother had died. Standing at this familiar spot, Seo-rin's heart filled with dread. Ji-woo backed her step by step toward the edge of the railing. She wanted to push Seo-rin off the cliff just as Seo-rin had pushed her mother. Seo-rin was terrified. She immediately begged for mercy. Under Ji-woo's persistent questioning, she admitted to killing Ji-woo's mother, but she didn't think she had done anything wrong. Ji-woo told her she had a chance to be forgiven, but Seo-rin refused to show any remorse. Ji-woo declared that her good friend Soonbok was dead. All that remained was the ruthless Seo-rin. In the end, to protect Shimai from harm, Ji-woo made a deal with Seo-rin. She would not expose Seo-rin for killing her mother on the condition that Seo-rin never let Shimai appear in court. Ji-woo made it clear this didn't mean she forgave Seo-rin's crimes. When Shimai grew up, she would personally send Seo-rin to prison. At that moment, Kang-woo stepped out from behind with a recording. Seo-rin was furious at falling into their trap, but she had no choice but to agree to Ji-woo's terms. However, the cunning Seo-rin had no intention of giving in easily. To prevent Ji-woo from seeing Shimai again, she planned to secretly send him out of the country. The 5-year-old couldn't bear the pain of being separated from his loved ones and begged Seo-rin to come with him, but she just tricked him, telling him to go alone. Heartbroken and disappointed, Shimai slipped away while they weren't watching, running and crying into the distance. Seo-rin panicked and chased after him with Dong-soo. Just then, Ji-woo and Kang-woo arrived. Shimai saw them like saviors and threw himself into Ji-woo's arms. Holding him tight, Ji-woo finally felt relief. This time, Kang-woo completely lost patience with Seo-rin. His hatred for her was absolute. They went straight to the chairman and told him everything. Kang-woo explained that Ji-woo was the woman he loved and Shimai's biological mother. Ji-woo handed the DNA report to the chairman. To protect Shimai, they ultimately revealed the whole truth. The old chairman was furious to discover he had been fooled by this woman for 5 whole years. Seo-rin immediately dropped to her knees begging for forgiveness, but she still hadn't given up on Shimai, insisting that she was his real mother since she had raised him from birth. Director Byun, panicked upon learning Seo-rin's identity was exposed, rushed over. He was terrified she would drag him down with her. The chairman blamed Director Byun for how he had investigated Seo-rin's background and allowed her to become his daughter-in-law. To save himself, Director Byun pretended he too had been deceived by Seo-rin. He cut ties with her completely and even made a show of scolding her in front of the chairman, calling her crime unforgivable. Seo-rin realized Director Byun had ruthlessly abandoned her. She stopped holding back and threatened to expose his schemes. Terrified, Director Byun broke into a cold sweat and had his men drag Seo-rin out by force. She was thrown out of the house like garbage. Afterward, to protect himself, Director Byun decided Seo-rin had to die. That night, he summoned Seo-rin. She waited for a long time, but he never showed up. Then he called and told her that only when she was permanently silenced would he be safe enough to continue seizing Musun Group. The moment he finished speaking, a bright light shone on her face. A large truck came barreling straight at her. At the last second, Dong-soo tackled her off the road. Seo-rin barely escaped death. When she woke up, Director Byun called again to warn her that if she wanted to stay alive, she needed to disappear immediately. Having lost everything, Seo-rin broke down in tears. She felt like life wasn't worth living anymore. She didn't want to give up her hard-won status as a wealthy family's daughter-in-law. If she could get Shimai back, she'd have a chance to turn things around. But she realized she couldn't even get through the front gates anymore, let alone take Shimai back. But the old chairman was no pushover. He quickly uncovered that Director Byun had been secretly helping Seo-rin. He showed no mercy, ordering his men to brutally beat Director Byun. If the son-in-law hadn't still been useful, the chairman might have killed him on the spot. He warned Director Byun not to try anything again, or there would be no more mercy. Though Director Byun apologized on the surface, deep down he burned with hatred for the man who had killed his father. Kang-woo was already pursuing a divorce through litigation. He was overjoyed at the thought of finally being with Ji-woo. Eager to move forward, he even took her to try on wedding dresses. Meanwhile, Seo-rin saw no hope and was preparing to leave with Dong-soo. But just when she thought all was lost, a woman appeared who gave her another chance to turn the tables. That woman was Kang-woo's biological mother. Seo-rin knew Kang-woo's mother needed money. She satisfied her financial needs and then used her to block Kang-woo's marriage to Ji-woo, buying herself time to find a way back in. Dong-soo had excitedly prepared everything, dreaming of running away with Seo-rin. But her sudden change of heart left him feeling like he was running naked through a blizzard. Still, for the woman he loved, he had no choice but to stay and help her once again. What Seo-rin didn't expect was that when she brought Kang-woo's mother to see him, the woman didn't even have the courage to face her son. She only caught a glimpse of him from a distance before fleeing in terror. This left Seo-rin bitterly disappointed. Gone was her previous sycophantic demeanor. She abandoned the mother-in-law and walked away. Only then did the mother-in-law see Seo-rin's true colors. She really was the wicked woman people said she was. After investigating the mother-in-law's past, they discovered she had schemed to drive away the original wife and then had Kang-woo. But when the chairman found out she had been hiding another man on the side, she was thrown out of the house. That's why Kang-woo had always believed his mother was dead. Seo-rin regretted ever thinking this embarrassing mother-in-law could help her back into the wealthy family. The woman was completely useless. Just as Seo-rin hit rock bottom again, wondering what to do next, a secret ledger fell to the ground and gave her new hope. This ledger contained evidence of Director Byun's embezzlement that Dong-soo had secretly collected. An idea struck her immediately. Although the old chairman already knew about Director Byun's schemes, the prosecutor's office would certainly be interested in such a ledger. The old chairman soon received word that the prosecutor's office was coming to investigate the company's corruption. Terrified, he ordered Director Byun to find out who had reported them. Director Byun knew without even thinking that this was Seo-rin's doing. He brought her straight to the chairman. The old chairman had originally planned to let Seo-rin go, considering she had raised Shimai and worked for the company. But this ungrateful woman had pushed him too far. He forced her to put her thumbprint on the divorce agreement, crushing any fantasy she had of returning to the wealthy family. Once again, Seo-rin was thrown out like trash. She immediately stood up and called out to Director Byun, threatening that he would regret this. But Director Byun wasn't afraid of someone who had lost everything. He told her to get lost. Seo-rin had once again put the company in the spotlight, which infuriated Kang-woo. He decided to use the recording to have the police reopen the investigation into Ji-woo's mother's death. The police quickly found Seo-rin and brought her in for questioning. The only person worried about her was Dong-soo. He wouldn't let the woman he loved become a prisoner. The only person who could help Seo-rin now was Director Byun. To save her, Dong-soo had to play his secret weapon. It turned out that when Ji-woo and her father had the car accident, Dong-soo was about to help them, but Director Byun stopped him. The dashcam had clearly captured the vehicle that caused the accident. Dong-soo sent the footage to Director Byun as leverage. He had also tracked down the hit-and-run driver and brought him before Director Byun. There was no doubt, Director Byun had orchestrated the accident that killed Ji-woo's father. Just like that, Seo-rin was quickly released. Director Byun planned to use this video to control both the old chairman and Kang-woo, because the person who actually ordered Ji-woo's father dead was the old chairman himself. To make Seo-rin and the old chairman destroy each other so he could reap the benefits, Director Byun revealed this truth to Seo-rin. She was overjoyed. She understood this was her last chance to return to the wealthy family. She immediately went to the chairman and used this to blackmail him into letting her back into the family. The old chairman thought this woman had lost her mind. But when Seo-rin told him that Ji-woo was the daughter of the anti-corruption bureau chief he had killed, the chairman nearly wet his pants on the spot. It turned out Ji-woo's father had been secretly investigating the chairman's corruption. The chairman had tried to get on his good side, but the upright bureau chief said nothing and simply handed him a book called A Trash Life. That was what made the chairman decide to have him killed. Now Seo-rin was using this secret to demand that the chairman kick Ji-woo out and let her return to Kang-woo's side as the wealthy family's daughter-in-law. With Seo-rin holding his fatal weakness, the chairman had no choice but to agree to her terms. In high spirits, Seo-rin saw Kang-woo and Ji-woo happily together but didn't get angry. She was looking forward to seeing how Ji-woo would react when she discovered that the chairman she respected was her father's killer. The next day, Seo-rin had Ji-woo forcibly thrown out of the chairman's house and once again took Shimai away from her. Kang-woo happened to see this when he came home from work. He confronted his father, asking if Seo-rin was blackmailing him. But the old chairman said nothing and just warned him to stay away from Ji-woo. Kang-woo had no choice but to find Seo-rin and demand the truth. Seo-rin was more than happy to keep him away from Ji-woo permanently. She told him straight out that the chairman had killed Ji-woo's father. This news was more than Kang-woo could bear. Meanwhile, although Ji-woo had been thrown out of the wealthy family, she didn't care about being their daughter-in-law. All she wanted was her child. With no other option, she secretly took her son from the estate. But before mother and son could even share a meal, Seo-rin discovered Shimai was missing and showed up at Ji-woo's home with the police. Ji-woo quickly hid Shimai behind her. To her shock, Seo-rin accused her of kidnapping and told the police to arrest her. When Kang-woo heard that Ji-woo had been falsely accused and taken to the police station by Seo-rin, he rushed over to vouch for her. Only then was Ji-woo safely released. Ji-woo wanted to know from Kang-woo why the chairman had suddenly started helping Seo-rin. But Kang-woo was in tremendous pain. Caught between his father and the woman he loved, he didn't want to hurt either one. Getting no answers, Ji-woo decided to investigate on her own. She wanted to be with Shimai openly and legitimately. Watching Ji-woo leave, Kang-woo no longer even had the right to ask her to stay. All of this was his father's doing. Terrified of losing Ji-woo again, Kang-woo begged his father to turn himself in and ask for Ji-woo's forgiveness. Only then would they have a future together. But for the old chairman, turning himself in wasn't the scary part. What scared him was that if he did, Kang-woo would never be able to inherit the company. He couldn't watch the company he had built fall into someone else's hands. But Kang-woo said he didn't care about the chairman position. He would give up everything to be with Ji-woo. To speed up the rift between Kang-woo and Ji-woo, Seo-rin found Ji-woo and told her that the old chairman had killed her father to cover up his corruption. Kang-woo happened to witness this scene. Ji-woo couldn't believe it and immediately went to Kang-woo for confirmation. Kang-woo didn't know how to ease the hatred in Ji-woo's heart. He could only kneel and beg for forgiveness, promising to make his father turn himself in and face justice. The kind old man in Ji-woo's heart was gone. All that remained was a murderer who killed for his own interests. When Kang-woo returned home, he grabbed Seo-rin by her slender neck, overcome with murderous rage. If it weren't for this woman, he and Ji-woo wouldn't have suffered so much and still be unable to be together. Fortunately, director Byun happened to pass by and snapped Kang-woo out of his fury. On the other side, Sun-ho learned that his chairman father was the man who had killed Ji-woo's father. He made an important decision, not only to make the chairman admit his wrongdoing and accept punishment for his late mother's sake, but also to help Ji-woo return to Musung Group and reclaim everything that rightfully belonged to her. Sun-ho ultimately revealed his true identity to Ji-woo and offered himself as a tool for her to reclaim what she had lost. Shortly after, the old chairman received an envelope. When he saw its contents, he nearly jumped out of his chair. The letter told him he had another son. Looking at the photo of his first love with a young boy, the chairman was thrilled. He rushed eagerly to the meeting spot mentioned in the letter. But the person waiting for him was Ji-woo. Under the chairman's puzzled gaze, Ji-woo made a demand. He had to let her return to the company before she would let him meet his son. The chairman had no choice but to agree. Then Sun-ho stepped out from behind the chairman. But when the chairman saw it was Sun-ho, he thought they were joking. He couldn't believe such a talented person could be his son. But when the DNA report was placed before him in black and white, the old chairman was stunned. He couldn't believe it. Sun-ho really was his child, the child of his first love, the one he had always dreamed of having. Sun-ho showed no emotion at the result. He made it clear he had only revealed his identity to help Ji-woo. He warned the chairman that if he didn't keep his promise, he would disappear from his life forever. Looking at the photo in his hand, the chairman found himself in an agonizing dilemma. On one side was Seo-rin, who held his secrets. On the other was a biological son he felt guilty toward and had always dreamed of having. After much internal struggle, he finally made his choice. In front of the entire family, he announced that Ji-woo would return to the company and continue caring for Shimai. As everyone sat there stunned, the old chairman made an even more shocking announcement. He had another biological son who had been living away from the family. Sun-ho stepped forward. Without a word being said, everyone understood that Sun-ho was the chairman's long-lost son. The most incredulous person was Kang-woo. His romantic rival turned out to be his half-brother. Outside, Kang-woo felt manipulated by Sun-ho and threw a heavy punch at him, berating him for hiding this relationship all along. Sun-ho said if it weren't for Ji-woo, he would have taken the secret to his grave. Unable to contain his frustration, Sun-ho punched back just as hard. After the two beat each other bloody, they finally sat down calmly. Sun-ho explained that he had revealed his identity to help Ji-woo. Though Kang-woo was jealous, he had no reason to blame Sun-ho anymore. To keep Seo-rin in check, the chairman gave her the shares that were supposed to go to his daughter-in-law. That was the only way she would reluctantly accept Ji-woo's return to the company. Curious about Sun-ho's sudden revelation, Kang-woo found manager Han, who had always looked after Sun-ho, to learn more. From manager Han, he discovered that his own mother had framed Sun-ho's mother and driven her away. Sun-ho had always hated the old chairman and planned to bury this secret forever. But this time, for Ji-woo's sake and for his own mother, Sun-ho had to reveal the truth. Kang-woo found it hard to accept that his mother was as terrible as manager Han described. But with his mother already dead, there was no way to confirm if it was true. Then manager Han dropped a bombshell. His mother was still alive. After that, manager Han left without revealing anything more. Kang-woo couldn't believe his mother, who he thought had died decades ago, was actually alive. When he arrived at a coffee shop, his sister also showed up, with his biological mother following behind. Kang-woo turned around at the sound and was completely dumbfounded. After 30 years, mother and son were finally meeting for the first time. To understand why his mother was still alive while his father had tried so hard to hide it, Kang-woo brought her home. The old chairman furiously told Kang-woo that this despicable woman didn't deserve to be his mother. She had not only framed Sun-ho's mother and driven her away but had also tried to have her killed. Kang-woo's mother admitted she had driven Sun-ho's mother away but denied trying to kill her. The image of his mother completely shattered in Kang-woo's heart. Later, Kang-woo's mother suspected suspected Director Byun was behind the murder attempt and told Kang Woo. Kang Woo then tried to learn from Dong-soo about how Director Byun had handled things in the past. When Seo-rin found out Kang Woo was gathering evidence against Director Byun, she hatched a plan. She had Dong-soo give Kang Woo information about someone who had worked for Director Byun before. Seo-rin wanted to use this opportunity to have Kang Woo take out Director Byun. After meeting with the man, Kang Woo confirmed that Director Byun was the one who had ordered the hit on Sun-ho's mother. But Seo-rin hadn't expected to also learn a painful truth from this man. On her 18th birthday, Director Byun had ordered his men to target Ji-woo. Unfortunately, Seo-rin was mistaken for Ji-woo and was raped by Director Byun's thugs instead. She had taken the bullet for Ji-woo. Seo-rin blamed everything on Ji-woo. She believed she had suffered through hell because of Ji-woo. Filled with resentment, she found Ji-woo and told her everything. Ji-woo never imagined Seo-rin had endured such agony on her behalf. Despite years of conflict between them, Ji-woo felt guilty, believing her existence had cost Seo-rin a happy life. But Ji-woo's apology only made Seo-rin angrier. While Seo-rin had been suffering, Ji-woo had been dating, happily pursuing her own happiness. Seo-rin told Ji-woo that if she truly felt guilty, she should stop getting in her way and disappear from her life. Ji-woo was at a loss for words and could only watch silently as Seo-rin left. Consumed by hatred, Seo-rin wanted revenge on everyone. She found Kang Woo one more time to confirm whether he had any feelings for her at all. Without hesitation, Kang Woo said no. His decisive answer made Seo-rin give up completely. She decided to make everyone who had trampled on her life face hellish punishment. She secretly stole the company's last secret ledger from Kang Woo's possession. Now she had all the secret ledgers in her hands. She no longer feared anyone's threats. Since she couldn't rely on Kang Woo, she decided to take the chairman's position for herself. To become chairman, she needed company shares. She asked the company lawyer if the chairman had followed through on his promise to give her shares. But the lawyer told her he had never heard anything about the chairman giving shares to a daughter-in-law. Furious, Seo-rin went to the chairman's room, intending to kill the bedridden old man. Ji-woo happened to walk in and stopped her just in time. Seo-rin no longer held back and declared she would take over the company. Not wanting to say anything worse in front of the chairman, Ji-woo pulled her outside. But the chairman had been awake the whole time. He had heard everything Seo-rin said. When Seo-rin discovered the chairman had been awake all along, she realized the severity of the situation. Terrified of being thrown out penniless, she frantically went to Director Byun to discuss what to do. At this critical moment, keeping the old chairman alive would only cause them endless trouble. Director Byun sent her an address and told her to find a way to sneak the old chairman out and bring him there. Soon, Kang Woo and Sun-ho came to visit their father. When they pulled back the covers, they were shocked to find he was gone. What they didn't know was that before they arrived, Seo-rin and Dong-soo had already secretly moved the old chairman. Just as Kang Woo and Sun-ho entered the house, Seo-rin's car with the chairman had passed right by them. Then Seo-rin forced the chairman's hand onto a company authorization document, sealing her grand ambition to become the company's master. To prevent Kang Woo and the others from calling the police, Seo-rin threatened to expose the company's secret financial ledgers. They had no choice but to give up on reporting it and try to rescue the chairman privately. With the authorization document in hand, Seo-rin announced at the shareholders meeting that Director Byun would become chairman. She herself would become vice chairman. Kang Woo took the document and examined it. It was indeed his father's thumbprint. He knew this was all done under duress by Director Byun and Seo-rin, but without solid evidence, all he could do was fume in silence. Just when Seo-rin and Director Byun thought their plan was about to succeed, Ji-woo's arrival completely crushed their fantasy. In her capacity as the chairman's secretary, she informed the shareholders that becoming chairman required not only the authorization document but also the crucial golden key. Because they didn't have the golden key, Seo-rin and Director Byun's scheme failed. But Director Byun wasn't about to give up. He decided to forge a fake golden key to bluff his way through. The old chairman's condition worsened again. The only person who could treat him was Dr. Cho. Seo-rin reluctantly sent Dong-soo to get medicine from Dr. Cho. She didn't want to end up with a kidnapping and murder charge. What Seo-rin didn't know was that Ji-woo and the others had anticipated this. They had prepared a tracker for Dr. Cho to put inside the medicine bottle. The bottle that Dong-soo took away contained the tracker. Using it, Ji-woo's team tracked Dong-soo's movements. The shareholders meeting was convened again. Director Byun, holding the forged golden key, confidently declared himself chairman. Seo-rin was overjoyed. But what Director Byun didn't expect was that the first person to challenge him was his own wife. It turned out she had discovered his cruel treatment of the chairman and had been biding her time at his side, waiting to strike a fatal blow to avenge her father. Seo-rin panicked on the spot and frantically insisted the key was real. But few people in the room had actually seen the real golden key. Just then, Kang Woo burst into the meeting. Then Ji-woo wheeled in the frail old chairman, carrying the real golden key. She announced to everyone that the authorization document was invalid. Seeing the game was up, Seo-rin slipped away before anyone noticed. Director Byun was arrested on charges of attempted murder and kidnapping. Seo-rin hid in the bathroom and called Dong-soo for help. But her best friend seemed to read her mind and found her right where she was hiding. Seo-rin was brought before the old chairman. She knelt on the ground, putting on a pitiful, innocent act and begging for forgiveness. She blamed everything on Director Byun. But there was no way the chairman would believe this vicious woman again. He demanded that Seo-rin agree to a divorce settlement with Kang Woo, give up custody of Shimai, and hand over the secret financial ledgers. Otherwise, he wouldn't let her off. But with the secret ledgers still in her possession, Seo-rin escaped punishment for now. She continued living in the house as if nothing had happened. After everything that had happened, the old chairman finally saw who truly cared about him. Though he had killed Ji-woo's father, she hadn't sought revenge. Instead, she had cared for him attentively. This moved him deeply. He recognized his wrongs and sincerely apologized to Ji-woo. However, Ji-woo took the old chairman to her father's memorial. She had him apologize directly to her father's spirit to seek forgiveness. She couldn't bring herself to end the life of a dying old man. After all, he was still her child's grandfather. This was the only way she could obtain her late father's forgiveness for the chairman. She didn't want to see anyone else get hurt in front of her. Yet Seo-rin and Director Byun, despite their current predicament, still hadn't given up their dream of taking over the company. Director Byun had Seo-rin find a way to get him out of police custody. He told her he still had one heavyweight trump card. To free Director Byun, Seo-rin teamed up with Director Park to deceive the old chairman. Director Park used the excuse of an investor who specifically requested Director Byun on a project to get the chairman to release him. But the moment Director Park left, the chairman knew this was Seo-rin's scheme. Since they wanted to dig their own graves, he decided to let them. The next day, Director Byun showed up at the company looking refreshed. Sun-ho couldn't believe this enemy wasn't being punished. He lost control, grabbed Director Byun, and demanded to know what tricks he had pulled. Compared to Sun-ho, Kang-woo appeared calm and composed. Director Byun smugly told Sun-ho that the old chairman himself had made this decision. Just as he was about to leave, Kang-woo mockingly told him that Seo-rin didn't actually have any company shares. Director Byun was instantly furious. Kang-woo then explained to Sun-ho why their father had released Director Byun. The old chairman wanted to completely deal with both Director Byun and Seo-rin before he died. Only when they were gone would the company be safe. Sun-ho finally understood his father's intentions. When Director Byun discovered he had been played, he furiously confronted Seo-rin. At that moment, the two completely fell out. Director Byun swore he would make Seo-rin pay dearly for deceiving him. Then Director Byun began implementing his own plan to seize the company. He found Sun-ho and used his trump card to threaten him directly. His trump card was knowing that Kang-woo wasn't actually the chairman's biological son. If Kang-woo found out, he would definitely be unable to handle such a blow. Director Byun used protecting the secret as leverage to make Sun-ho help him become chairman. But their entire conversation was overheard by Seo-rin, who was hiding in the shadows. She was shocked and couldn't accept this news. Seo-rin wasn't sure what Director Byun planned to do with the secret, but she decided she needed to strike first. To confirm the information, she had Dong-soo secretly conduct a DNA test between the old chairman and Kang-woo. Just as Seo-rin confirmed that Kang-woo and the old chairman were not father and son, several men in black suddenly grabbed her and took her away. Dong-soo arrived a step too late and could only watch helplessly as the car carrying Seo-rin drove off. The one who had taken Seo-rin was Director Byun. He wanted to get the company's secret financial ledgers that Seo-rin had hidden. To save Seo-rin, Dong-soo had no choice but to hand over the secret ledgers to Director Byun. After being rescued, Seo-rin didn't say a word of thanks. Instead, she slapped Dong-soo hard across the face. Without the financial ledgers, Seo-rin had lost her weapon for battle. With her eyes bloodshot, she decided to get ahead of Director Byun. She would reveal Kang-woo's true parentage at all costs, ruining Director Byun's plan. Maybe this way she'd still have one last chance. On the day Kang-woo was to be appointed chairman of Musung Group, Seo-rin arrived right on schedule, stunning everyone with her dramatic entrance. Director Byun's heart nearly jumped out of his chest. He had a feeling Seo-rin's appearance meant nothing good. Sure enough, in front of everyone, Seo-rin revealed the truth. Kang-woo was not the old chairman's biological son. She even brought the DNA test report as evidence. No one knew how much time had passed. When Ji-woo found Kang-woo, he looked like he had lost his soul, completely hollow. The father he had respected for decades wasn't his real father. He couldn't accept such a devastating blow. But after doing all this, Seo-rin had expected to feel happy. Instead, she felt nothing. Because Seo-rin had revealed the truth early, Director Byun's plan was completely ruined. He gnashed his teeth and swore to tear Seo-rin to pieces. When Director Byun's men were about to attack Seo-rin in the underground parking garage, Dong-soo, who had been protecting her all along, intervened just in time. Seo-rin narrowly escaped once again. Director Byun's actions reminded Seo-rin of what had happened 18 years ago when she was kidnapped and violated. She was afraid he might send people to do the same thing again. To protect herself, she decided to strike first before Director Byun could act. She publicly posted all of Director Byun's dirty secrets on the company website and arranged a press conference to declare that everything she had done was under Director Byun's coercion. If anything happened to her, it would definitely be Director Byun's doing. Director Byun rushed over to stop the media from spreading the news. Looking at Seo-rin, his hatred for her deepened. Watching the two of them tear each other apart, Ji-woo felt relieved. Dong-soo, who always worried about Seo-rin, was very unhappy that she had openly challenged Director Byun. He had just learned that to get revenge on Seo-rin, Director Byun had handed the company's secret ledgers to the Anti-Corruption Bureau and pinned all the blame on her. Things had come to this point. Seo-rin understood it was either kill or be killed. She then received a message from Director Byun asking to meet for one final negotiation. Through a friend who used to work for Director Byun, Dong-soo learned that this time, Director Byun was determined to get rid of Seo-rin once and for all. In a panic, Dong-soo found Seo-rin's mother, hoping she could persuade Seo-rin not to meet Director Byun. Seeing Dong-soo's frantic expression, Seo-rin's mother sensed something terrible was about to happen. She went with Dong Dong-soo to stop Seo-rin. Seo-rin actually knew Director Byun was meeting her to kill her, but she had the same intention. With all the old and new grudges combined, only one of them could survive. Looking at her enemy before her, Seo-rin didn't hesitate. She started the car, floored the accelerator, and charged straight at him. But unexpectedly, Seo-rin's mother had arrived just in time to stop her daughter from making another mistake. She threw herself in front of the speeding car. Unable to brake in time, Seo-rin hit her mother, leaving her lying on the ground with severe injuries. At the hospital, Seo-rin stared at her own hands in overwhelming guilt and regret for hurting her own mother. Her mother survived, but no one knew when she would wake up. Ji-woo sat by Seo-rin's mother's hospital bed, sobbing uncontrollably. She had long considered Seo-rin's mother as her own. If it hadn't been for her devoted care when Ji-woo was in a vegetative state, she knew she might have already left this world. Full of regret, Seo-rin took one last look at her mother and decided to turn herself in for what she had done. Before leaving, Seo-rin smiled at Dong-soo for the first time. She thanked him for staying by her side and taking care of her all these years. Dong-soo watched in heartbroken agony as the police led Seo-rin away. Meanwhile, before the chairman passed away, Kang-woo, with encouragement from Ji-woo and Sun-ho, finally returned home. The chairman didn't abandon Kang-woo just because he wasn't his biological son. Years of love and attachment meant more than blood. He still considered Kang-woo his son, and passed the chairman position of Musung Group to him. The once formidable old chairman finally lost his battle with illness and left this world forever. This news was wonderful for Director Byun. He saw the chairman's death as the perfect opportunity to seize the company. But what he didn't expect was that the moment he arrived at the office, the chairman's loyal confidants, arranged before his death, grabbed him. Without hesitation, they snapped his neck and ended his life. Director Byun left this world with eyes full of unwillingness and hatred for the old chairman. Seo-rin was sentenced to 80 years in prison. Though she wanted to reform, she couldn't find peace. She had nightmares every day, and her mental state began to deteriorate. She was also beaten by other inmates. A year passed quickly. Without the villains, everything returned to normal. Kang-woo and Ji-woo finally became husband and wife. Shimaya's custody was returned to them. Seo-rin's mother also recovered and was now working with Dong-soo. Seo-rin's mother urged Dong-soo to find a nice girl and settle down, but he said he would only love Seo-rin in this lifetime. As for Seo-rin, the trauma she suffered in prison had left her mentally unstable. She no longer spoke. The more desires you have, the more suffering you face. Especially those desires that are hard to fulfill, they become nothing but fantasies. Ji-woo opened her heart and let go of all the past grievances. She understood that no one was truly at fault. The only thing to blame was the cruel hand of fate. And with that, the Korean drama, Secret of Women, comes to an end. Thank you all for watching.